many things happening in our school district. Cincinnati Public Schools is looking amazing, and we are something to be excited about. This school year, my team and I read and studied John Gordon's PJ Fleck's Row the Boat. It's an amazing read about how a never give up approach to leading with enthusiasm and optimism is so important. Its ideals focus on improving your team and your culture. So in addition to the teams I have the privilege of working with every day, I get excited about our quarterly meetings because you are one of the most important teams in our school district and in our schools. So when I'm out and about talking to other educators from other districts and across the state and the country, I share decisions about what our local school decision-making committee makes. People always want to know more, and they're always interested in knowing how they can get such a committee started in their schools and in their district. Do you know how important and impressive your work is? Well, tonight, I'm pleased to share you'll hear a little bit about some very important aspects of your work. First, you'll hear from our DSL, Stacy Hill Simmons, on the principal selection process. You'll also hear from Michelle Tam, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager. She'll share an update and talk about the LSDMC's responsibilities for this work. And then finally, Summer Scholars and Jumpstart, where academic enrichment opportunities for all of our students began last school year. We're excited to announce that that will continue and that we will be growing those programs. And then before the night ends, you'll hear from our Planning Committee and Board of Education member, Ms. Eve Bolton. And closing us out will be the Director of Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, Ms. Amy Randolph. And because in this setting, I can't really see everyone, I want to pause to see if there are other board members on the call. I do understand Dr. Kareem Moffitt planned to join. I want to acknowledge her if she is on the call. Dr. Kareem Moffitt raised her hand. There you go. Thank you. Dr. Moffitt raised her hand. We will make sure we save some time for her to say and share a couple of words to the district-wide LSDMC. Are there any other board members on the call? Fantastic. Then on your next slide, we will begin to hear a brief overview about the principal selection process from Stacy Hill Simmons, our Director of School Leadership. Stacy?
I'm on. I see you. How you doing? Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is so good to see you guys in the district-wide LSDMC. I want to go back a slide, please. I want to talk a little bit as I introduce the principal selection process. I want to do it from a space of just sharing with you guys what our pipeline is and what it looks like. I'm going to be brief because I know the meat of the information is what everybody's interested in is how do we select a principal in this space. So we have a principal's pipeline, which I lead. And in the pipeline is a partnership with the Wallace Foundation. And what we do is as a pipeline, our primary goal is to identify, nurture, select, place, and build on our building leadership. And we do that from a space of we have a planning team. Next slide, please. Our cross-functional team consists of the following members. I will not read all the names, but all are familiar. Interestingly enough, on our cross-functional team, we always host two principals. We have this year replacing me will be Ms. Angel Roddy. She's the principal at Mount Airy School. And Mr. Taylor Porter was on the last couple years. He's the principal at Gamble Montessori. So what we try to do is create a place where all voices are represented at the table. So it's a pretty interesting group. And our primary goal is to make sure that we really support what's happening in that principal space as we create an umbrella of support for all things principal. Next slide, please. So under the umbrella of the principal pipeline is a host of functions. We actually select the principal recruitment, principal selection and retention, principal hiring and placement, assistant principal practicum pipeline, assistant principal summer internship, leader tracker, principal leads, assessment center, and I think I have everything, and the LSDMC process for the selection of principals. So these are just the big things. We move the work with a strong focus on focusing all of our work on the principal standards. So we try to do the work from that space. Next slide, please. But the big question always is, as an LSDMC, which you guys represent on this committee today, how does this affect us? At some point, as a school LSDMC, every LSDMC will be faced with the honor, the challenge of selecting a new leader. That is super important work that falls solely in the hands of the LSDMC and its members. So that work falls under our principal pipeline. So what I want to do is just spend a little bit of time talking about what that looks like. The selection and hiring and placement of a principal all lies in the hands of the LSDMC. It is super important. So right now, everyone who has an interim principal will undergo the principal selection process. Any vacancies, some people will have principals that may get promoted, may choose to move on, or principals who will surprise you and move on to the next seat. I was a surprise move from Evanston. They didn't know that I was going to move on, so they had to undergo the selection process, and they had no clue. So many of you guys on the call won't know this is coming. So this becomes germane for everybody, because everybody at some point will select a new principal. So you want to first align. So be mindful as this process moves forward. It's led by the DSL. So someone in our office will lead the process, but they will work with the LSDMC to make sure that that happens, and it happens in excellence, and that it follows a system that we've laid out. All principal vacancies post in Ohio principals postings are in the Ohio principals in our district portal. So what happens is you get postings routinely as it relates to what is available, but we have a system as it relates to how you apply and what that looks like for you as a candidate. We have several different stops that are mandatory for any candidate who is interested in a principal seat in our district. First being, after you apply with our district, next slide, please, you must see our assistant soups for the initial interview in the selection process. So you have to see our assistant soups first. Miss Wilkie, I gotta get you on mute, honey. You have to see our assistant soups first, and then our assistant soups make the initial decision as to whether or not you move forward.
I'm sorry, Stacy. I'm sorry. Excuse me, team. We've got background information. Just a friendly reminder to mute yourselves. Thank you kindly. Sorry, Stacy.
No worries at all. So after the assistant soups make their initial selection, you will have an opportunity to move forward. If you move forward, and that is our hope, but we are looking for the best talent, and so is everybody else. But we are looking for perfect fits for Cincinnati Public Schools who believe in the mission of excellence in education for the kids in our watch care. If you get the nod from our assistant soups, you then move on to the assessment center. In the assessment center, you go through a robust combination of activities and principal-like experiences. And at that point, that team makes a decision as to whether or not you move on to LSDMC interviews. So with the LSDMC interviews, LSDMCs will go through a process where they actually create. And if you look at this slide, we have the standards. The principal standards are on the right, and LSDMCs will have the opportunity to vet and create questions from our bank of questions connected to their needs assessment. Now, a person just like me, a DSL, will actually help you through that process, but the LSDMC, this is your work. This is your work. If you are my school, I will move through that process with you. I will lead that process, but it is your responsibility to identify a candidate who best fits the needs of the school that you serve. LSDMCs conduct the interviews. LSDMCs create the needs assessments, and LSDMCs make a recommendation to the superintendent, and the superintendent will make the final decision. Next slide, please. Listed below is our timeline that we've created. So in December, our first postings went out before Christmas. And I think at that time we had 4 or 5. Please be mindful that anybody who's sitting, any principal who is sitting in an interim seat, their position would post, just because that's our process. We understand that many folks who have leaders right now who are interim love their principals. We get it. We understand that. We respect that. I know I spoke with one of my schools last week, and my chair, my LSDMC chair, talked about how much he loved his principal, thought she was great. I get it. I agree. I think she's great. However, our process is you still conduct an interview. So this just flushes out what the interview process looks like. So we've already started principal interviews through our district, through our assistant superintendents. And right now we are in the process. Those are ongoing. Now we are talking to LSDMCs. We've already done that at February 23rd. We've already started talking to LSDMCs. I have one interview, one vacancy, and my LSDMC chair and I have already met and have scheduled to meet the LSDMC, and that's where you create your needs assessments, and then you create your questions, and then you schedule your interview. So it's a robust process. There's no opportunity for freestyling. We try to stay within the window, so we take everyone through the very same process. And at the end, our explicit goal is to make sure that every school receives a solid candidate that reflects the needs of that school, because each school has a different set of needs and different things that they are looking for in a principal. So what we as a pipeline try to do is provide a list of candidates who possess the background skills based on that school's needs. Next slide, please. LSDMC responsibilities and ethical guidelines. Here's the tricky part. If you are not currently a member in good standing on an LSDMC and a principal moves on at the school that you represent, you will not be able to participate in that LSDMC process. So what is good standing? Good standing means you've been attending meetings, you've been a member on that LSDMC roster, and your name was not just added once we found out that your principal was moving on. You need to report conflicts of interest to the director of school leadership, meaning your daughter's best friend is a candidate for said LSD, for said vacancy at the school that you are on. You go to, you attend church with said member or something. Those are conflicts. And it may not mean that you have to come off you can no longer participate, but we need to know those things. Participate in pre-meeting and interviews with an open mind, adhering to the selection standards identified by the LSDMC. We're just asking you to be open-minded. Be open-minded, especially for those folks who are very much committed to their interim principal. We think we have some amazing interims this year who sat in the seat. However, this is our process. We are asking you guys as LSDMC members to just hang out with us. If nothing else, you'll grow from the process and your candidate will stand out and shine. In fairness to all candidates, do not share interview questions, performance tasks with anyone outside the LSDMC. Next slide, please. Respect candidates' confidentiality. Please, 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 please. Do not go share. Ooh, Shauna Murphy was in this interview. Don't do it, because Shauna Murphy may not want anybody to know she was in that interview. Protect her confidentiality and her right to look at options. LSDMC makes a recommendation to the superintendent, but must be approved by the board. Please, guys, you have this, you will get these candidates information. Understand our process is, I as the LSDMC, I as the director of school, you guys as the LSDMC, you make your recommendation to me. I pass that recommendation on to the superintendent. The superintendent then makes a recommendation to the board. Please don't contact your candidate. You saw her at Target. You told her how great she was and she was your person. Don't. It violates the truth in our process and the transparency in our process. So we're asking you guys to please trust the process. Every DSL will explain the process to the LSDMC in grave detail, because we want you guys to be comfortable with the process, but we also want to protect the confidentiality of each of our candidates who apply. Next slide, please. So for everyone who knows they have an interim principal, for everyone who has heard already by their principal that they may be moving on, we want you guys to sit in this question. What do you want to see in your next principal? It's a huge question, has many angles. And it is not the responsibility of one LSDMC member to be the voice of the group. It is the collective voice that makes the best decision. Last slide, please. I have listed our principal standards, and I want to make sure that you guys understand that all the questions that are created in our question bank come from the principal standards. We will share these with each LSDMC as we begin to convene our interview process. And we're really excited about this season. For us, this is our Bengals draft. This is where we select our best talent. We hope that many of our APs will apply so they can move on to sit in the principal seat, because we believe in promoting some of our folks who have sat and hung out with us and have the opportunity to lead as building leaders. So, Ms. Murphy, I am not sure how you guys handle questions. Should we put them in the chat or?
We can pause and take a couple of questions at this point. If anyone has a question, if someone on my team can help me to see if there's anything in the chat, that would be extremely helpful. And I'll pull up the chat as well. I see lots of our friends signing in today. I love it, love it, love it. Are there any questions?
So as we wrap in the chat, let me just add this. If you've not heard from, there are currently 4 vacancies that I know of, and I know factually that we have made contact with all 4 of those LSDMCs. If you have questions that you're just not sure about, I am going to have I'm going to drop my information in the chat, and please do not hesitate to reach out. I am happy to assist. We're really excited about all of our new talent. Our first year principals this year were solid, and we are hoping to have another first year principals group next year. Well, we definitely will. So if you have questions and you don't feel comfortable asking today, I am putting my information in the chat, and you are I'm more than willing to take questions, and you can reach out to me.
All right. Thank you, Stacy Hill Simmons, one of our amazing directors of school leaders. Thank you very kindly. So at this time, we will have our diversity, equity, and inclusion update by Dr. Michelle Baltam.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just going to do some quick updates on what's going on in the DEI office now, some projects we have, and then I'll spend a lot of time outlining the anti-racism committees. I know a lot of people have been asking, so we'll talk about structure, guidelines, and expectations. So hopefully all questions should be answered by the end of tonight. Next slide. Okay, so the audit, I know I discussed at the last LSDMC meeting I was on that we were doing a district-wide equity audit. That has been concluded. So we have collected all of our data from all of our schools. However, we are still analyzing that data. So we partnered with Hamilton County to do this audit, and they are the ones who are kind of analyzing that data, generating a report. So as soon as that is available to us, we will make that available to you guys so you guys can see what came out of the audit. So I just wanted everyone to know that that is forthcoming and it hasn't just disappeared. In addition, instead of doing like a audit of the central office, you can't really do a classroom observation in the central office. I could sit in Dan Hoying's office and watch him all day, but that's a little not what it was intended to do. So instead, I'm meeting with each of the directors in the central office, and we're brainstorming goals for that department. For example, One of the departments knows that they're going to have 9 openings in the coming year, and we've set the goal of 3 of those are going to be minority hires. Another department has said, we really want to create more opportunities for minority applicants in our pipeline up to the central office. So those kind of goals that they can be working on, so that we're not just telling the schools, let's work on DEI, but we're also starting with the central office and with the Ed Center. Okay, next. Next is the teacher survey. I don't remember if I had mentioned this or not, but starting in November, I put out a teacher survey that was available to every teacher in the district. We had about 800 responses. And so from those responses, we've generated a report that includes teachers' feelings about DEI, how supportive they feel their school is, what they would like to see the district do differently, what they think we're doing well, etc. So that link will take you directly to the report. It's like 28 pages. It's a little aggressive in terms of stats, but if you scroll to the end, there's lots of graphs and those explain everything. So if you click that link, it'll take you there. But tonight, I just want to hit on 3 key findings and not dive into the whole thing. So starting with this graph. So we had questions asking teachers kind of what's your feelings towards diversity right now? How comfortable are you with it? What are your beliefs about, for example, sexual orientation, gender, race, etc. And so this line 1 is the answer disagree. So on a scale of 0, strongly disagree, up to 4, strongly agree. 1 is equal to a disagree. And we would hope that, for example, most teachers, their sexual prejudice, they would say, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with being sexually prejudiced towards sexual minorities. So anything blue means it wasn't significantly different than that benchmark of disagree. And anything that's in green, that's a good thing. We're doing good at that. So for example, most of our teachers say don't endorse gender stereotypes. They don't believe the stereotypes that like boys should ask girls on dates, that girls should do makeup and do their hair to look nice for school. Most teachers don't endorse that. That's good. Most teachers don't endorse the idea that every student starts life with the exact same opportunities and at the same starting point, and that everybody has equal opportunities from birth. Most teachers don't agree with the idea of assimilation, so saying that students with different cultures should assimilate to American culture. Most teachers don't believe that. And then most teachers say, I'm not intimidated by having diverse students in my class. Red bars are no good bars. Red bars are things that we want to work on. And this is not saying this is going to be terrible forever, but it just lets us know that this is maybe where we want to start. So more teachers than we would like say that they ignore diversity in their classrooms. And more teachers than we would like say that they worry about discussing DEI topics with their students. And this will connect a lot to, these connect to each other. So when they worry and they don't know what to say, then they ignore it. So these 2 things are connected and we can work on them at the same time. This is, I think, a particularly telling graph. So this is teachers' feelings of support from administration at the school level and administration at the district level. Again, so blue bars are good, it's fine. This time, the marker, this red line, is agree. So we would hope that most teachers would agree that they're feeling supported. Everything that's red is not good. So for example, most teachers say, I'm not comfortable discussing DEI topics with my school administration. Most teachers say that their school administration is not supportive of them. They don't support DEI topics at school. Most people say that district administration is not supportive of them. Most people say they don't feel they can advance their careers in CPS. And a lot of people say the school administration and the district administration do not value them. And most people say that they are not important to CPS. Again, so this is not like a strongly disagree, the district doesn't like any of us. I mean, this is still, let's say like a 2.0 out of 4. So we're kind of in the middle, but ideally, right, we would want everybody to say, at least I agree that district administration supports me. I might not, feel strongly agree, but I at least agree that they do. So this is, again, something we can work on. And I think one of the things that came out of the survey too was this desire to see work come from the top down. So let's see the central office really push for DEI. Let's see them, put out these PDs and do these trainings and see work come from them and have them be proactive in leading the work instead of just telling us as teachers to kind of pioneer it by ourselves. Okay, next slide. And then last, this is the qualitative answers. So we just asked, what would you like to see done different? What do you think we do well? Like what would help you? What would prevent you from addressing these issues? And you can see the biggest categories that people marked as areas of issues is lack of administrative support. Roughly 18% of people, lack of knowledge or confidence, or issues, lack of time. They say, I have so much curriculum to teach, I don't have time to discuss this. A lot of people cite issues with, I think if I said something and a student didn't like it and the parents came and complained, my principal would not support me. I'm scared I would be fired or, reprimanded, or I wouldn't be able to advance my career. So again, we're really seeing that it's these concerns about administration that are driving a lot of our issues with addressing DEI. So that's something we're going to want to start with as we move forward. Things teachers say would help them is dedicated time to discuss DEI topics, supportive administration, better curriculum and more resources, and then overwhelmingly more trainings and PD, which are coming. Don't have time to dive into everything that's on the way, but we are definitely addressing each of these things. Okay. Next is handbook revisions. I know I did mention this at the last LSDMC meeting I was on, that we are planning to revise all of our handbooks to include the anti-racism policy, to align with the anti-racism policy, with our equity policy, with our non-discrimination policies. So revisions are going to be guided by the current board policies, which are linked there. And all revisions are due by mid-June. So we're putting, the guide is linked on the next page, I believe, but we're putting out that guide now. And so if you're, a principal or an LSDMC that says, I know this person is the person that every year addresses the student handbook, they can get started on that right now if they want. If you want to wait till the official school year is over and on May 26th just to get started, that's fine. But the reason we are having those handbooks due mid-June is so that we can translate them into our 3 other main languages in CPS, which are Spanish, French, and Arabic, so that all students will be able to easily access these handbooks, and especially the parents will be able to easily access these handbooks. So by the beginning of the next school year, 2022 to 2023, we expect every handbook to be updated, revised according to the board policies, and to be available in all 4 languages. Okay, maybe I did not link the guide, but we do have a guide, and I will put that out before we share this. Oh, there it is. Just kidding. There it is. So this guide, for example, says, the anti-racism policy says X, Y, Z. Do I have that or no? And then gives a good example and a needs improvement example. If you want to copy and paste the good example into your handbook, that is A-okay. But it kind of walks you through the process of revising your handbook. Thank you so much, Brandy. Okay, so on to our anti-racism committees. We're going to talk about structure, guidelines, and then finish with expectations and timeline. Starting with an overview, these were born out of the anti-racism policy. They call for an anti-racism committee at every school as a subset of the LSDMC. It is not housed under the ILT, it is under the LSDMC. And selecting committee members will be the responsibility of the LSDMC. If you want input from other sources, so let's say you're like from the DEI office or whoever, that's totally fine, but the final decision rests with the LSDMC. And the meetings that you have going in the next school year should be open attendance, and minutes should be kept and published as with these meetings. So structure, I want to highlight the word suggested composition, right? You have some schools that are significantly larger than others. Schools have different makeups. And so this is suggested composition. You do not have to adhere strictly to these numbers, but we suggest 2 students, 2 or 4 teachers. So some schools that have upper and lower schools, maybe you want 2 lower school teachers and then 2 from the high school. If you're just a high school, maybe you just want 2 staff members. And so this would be people, non-teaching individuals. This can be paras, this can be counselors. And we would like someone that's on that side still related to education, for example, a para, a counselor, and then someone who is not related to the teaching at all. So for example, dining staff, custodial staff, security staff. Of course, if you have one security guard at your school, you can't tell them you have to be on the anti-racism committee. So again, suggested, but we would like to see just a representation of everybody that that inputs into the school. We would like to see them represented on the committee. 2 parents, 2 committee members, and then 1 administrator. Again, suggested, you do not have to have exactly these numbers. We also suggest that your committee should be demographically representative of your school. For example, Roberts is going to be very different than, let's say, Spencer, which is going to be very different from South Avondale. And so that's fine. You just want to have what's representative for your school. And the size may be smaller, but we want to keep the ratios relatively the same. So if you have less, that's fine, but don't have like 10 parents and 2 teachers, because we don't want the parent voice to outweigh, let's say, the teacher voice.
You can keep going, Michelle. We'll get all the questions at the end.
Okay,
Nope, go ahead.
So for committee members, specifications for students, K through 6 members can attend meetings, but they are not eligible to sit on the committee. So they can go there, they can express, their desires and things they want to see happen, or comments. And I suggest you leave some room for that in the beginning, but they cannot have an official seat on the committee. Teachers, again, representative of school, and then staff. It was suggested, and I think this is a really good idea, to have somebody who's present during unstructured times. For example, recess, lunch, times when most of our unstructured and unsupervised student interactions happen. So perhaps you want someone who witnesses those, because they're going to be the people that maybe can give you input on what's actually happening in the school. Okay. Committee selection guidelines. You need to publicize the new DEI committee, or the anti-racism committee. Sorry, I think I mistyped that. And you're going to promote an open call for nominations. So everybody in your school community should be eligible to apply or nominate themselves or someone else to be on your anti-racism committee. All stakeholders for your school. So again, everyone who potentially has a seat can be nominated. And there's no official application that's left up to individual schools. But I suggest at least, reason for applying, why you would be a good fit. What are some goals that you have for the committee or things you want to work on? But each school can decide exactly what prerequisites or what requirements they have for somebody to sit on their committee. It is suggested. I know I spoke with LaRonda Thomas, who is our parent champion. We have a lot of schools, for example, schools that have a large Spanish-speaking population. It's suggested maybe put out the open call in more than one language, so that parents and community members of all backgrounds and cultures can be eligible to participate, because they have an important voice in a lot of our schools. Next. So expectation goals. So for the next school year, of course, we're not just going to try to work on one thing. We'll have many goals over, time. But to start with, for the beginning of the next school year, every school should have picked out a goal for their particular school based on whatever you deem important for your school. For example, some schools may say, we have a really big discipline gap, racial gap in our discipline. Also, all of your principals are in possession of the discipline data for your school. So maybe you look at that and you say, that's something we want to work on. Or some schools, not every student gets the chance to be tested for gifted. So if you miss the day, you're just out of luck. You don't get to test, and that excludes some of our students. For example, you might say, we want to ensure everybody has can access our extracurricular activities. Maybe you require parent volunteering to be on a team. Well, maybe a kid doesn't have a parent who has time available to do that. So we want to make sure that every kid can participate regardless of background. So those are some example goals that you could have, and those goals should be represented in your one plan for the next school year. So this is the timeline. Ultimate goal is to have every committee up and running by fall 2022. And so nominations, we expect that now that we have put this out into the hands of LSDMC, hopefully very soon, there will be an open call for nominations. And so those will be due, the applications, people, whatever application you deem fit, those will be due by the end of March so that a committee can be selected by the end of April. And then just by the end of the school year, which is May 26th, the information of who sits on your anti-racism committee should be available to your school community. And you should have some sort of preliminary meeting or fall schedule for the fall. This is not to say it's permanent, written in stone. Things change over the summer and even as the semester goes on, that's totally fine. But just some sort of, we plan to meet in this week of September and this week of October, just so we can have a structure going forward and something to work off of as the fall comes along. So that is the last of the slides I have. I think 4 minutes and many, many, many questions. So we shall see how many I can answer.
So Michelle, I think this one's going back to the survey, the first few. One person is asking about when you talked about the sexual orientation, is that sexual orientation prejudice, or can you talk a little bit more about that, what that means?
So sexual prejudice is that measure is a measure of attitudes towards sexual minorities. So dealing with sexual orientation, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then did you collect data from, it says from staff as well, so I'm assuming that means non-teaching staff. And then what are your thoughts about what you're going to do once this is gathered and now has been reported? What are the next steps?
So the survey was sent out to all teachers. I have, because some of the questions are specific to teaching, like in the curriculum and in the classroom. We do have in the fall, for example, a student survey coming out. And at the same time, I think it would be good to do a survey of our non-teaching staff. So paras, counselors, security members, things like that. And as for what we're doing with the survey, there are in the results that we have, and we've pulled out main things, the main findings. And based off of that, we have a plan based on each of the main findings. And again, I can't dive into all of that, but for example, teachers are saying we need more resources. Like we can't afford to get some of the books or the materials, or we can't afford to have this training or the speaker that we want. And so part of what we're going to do is the anti-racism committees are each going to be given a stipend of $500 plus. And with that, they will be able to purchase those resources and fill that gap for their schools. So that's just one thing, but yeah, every finding pulled out of that will have a plan that will be available publicly.
Darn it, I'm back. I saw somebody asked about student survey, but you answered that, that will be coming in the fall. And then what level of participation, what was the percentage of teachers that took the survey?
I sent it out to 3,000 people. Over roughly 3,000 people are listed in Cognos as teachers. I sent it out to every single one of them. I got roughly 1,200 replies. About 800 of those were viable. So completed more than like 10% of the survey, or 25% of the survey. So 800 out of 3,000 were sitting at roughly 25%, a bit over 25%. Which for open calls for participation like this is actually quite a good response rate. And as for the student survey, the reason we've put it off to the fall is for students who need parental consent. And we have learned in research that when you send home a parental consent form, it often gets swallowed by the backpack and never sees the light of day. So our best opportunity to get those signed and returned is in the fall when parents are already signing a bajillion forms. Hopefully the consent form will find its way to a parent and then find its way back. So.
All right, and I think this is about where Gwen Moore, I believe you had a question, so I want to give you that opportunity, or you're good? All right, I think you're good. And then what strategy are we going to use to transform these concerning issues? I'm
not quite sure I understand the question. Like like what are the solutions to the problems? Is that?
I think, Michelle, for example, you mentioned earlier professional development.
So yes, we do. Speaking of professional development, we do have a plan. Every school will send 2 people to the central office to me, and I'll do PDs on anti-racism with each of those 2 people. So it'll be like 6 groups of 20, and then those people will go back to their schools, and then they can do PD with staff members at that school. Just because logistically, I can't train all 3,000 employees in CPS in time for the next school year. So for example, the call for more training PD, we will have that. It'll just be a trickle down of I'll train some people who will then train some other people who will then train some other people. Let's see, in terms of district administration and support, like I said, that's why we're starting with our goals at the central office. Every department has to come up with a DEI goal, because I do agree with teachers in that it's important for the Ed Center and administrators to lead this work and to show that we're invested in it before asking someone else to be invested in it. So yeah, we're definitely creating central office goals, and those will also be publicly available, because I believe that all of this should be transparent and everyone should have access to all of this data. So.
Okay, I will go through a couple of more and then we'll do the next presentation, and we can stay on for more, or also I can collect these and make sure that Michelle reaches out to you individually. I did see a question for the overall group that this is being recorded and we can send it out. So we will send it out to principals and all LSDMC chairs. So you will have access to this presentation and all of the presentations this evening. So the next question is, please explain the responsibility of the LSDMC and the Anti-Racism Committee and why the ILT is not included. I just real quickly want to say that the policy, specifically the Anti-Racism Board policy, calls out that this is a committee that's a subcommittee of the LSDMC. So it's not that the ILT cannot review the work or talk about the work, but it is specifically a subcommittee of the LSDMC per the board policy.
Yeah, so Amy answered that perfectly. That's just because that's the language in the policy. But again, you can get input or whatever from the ILT. That is completely fine. So the responsibility of the LSDMC in relation to the Anti-Racism Committee right now is to put out an open call for committee members and to select those members and to create that committee. Now going forward, the degree to which the Anti-Racism Committee reports to you is, I guess, up to each committee. If you want them to send you a typed report every single time they meet, or if you're like, we just need some brief updates, that's up to you. But right now, the LSDMC is responsible for soliciting nominations and choosing committee members. The actual Anti-Racism Committee, once you're formed, your main goal, and you can start now or at the beginning of the next school year, is to choose a goal, an anti-racism goal you feel is relevant to your school, and to put that in your one plan. Of course, that's not the only thing that you will ever do forever, but that's a good starting point. And like I said, this is open attendance. Students can come and say, this is something I would like addressed. Parents can say, this is something I would like addressed. And you can work based off that. But again, every school is unique. And so I don't want to put out everybody needs to do A, B, and C. You as a school can decide what issues you want addressed. But for sure, you need something in your one plan at the beginning of the next school year.
All right, so I'm going to pause on questions for Michelle and let, if we can bring the presentation back up, and we are going to have our Summer Scholars team that is led by Liz Wolf, and she is going to give an update around Summer Scholars.
All right, thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. We are so glad to talk about Summer Scholars 2022 with you guys. It's going to be fantastic. So we are going to build upon the awesome program that we had last year in various and strategic ways. So we're going to go ahead and get started and hand it over to the team. But my name is Liz Wolf, and I'm excited to be here with you this evening.
Hi, everyone. Casey Fisher here. I have the pleasure of introducing you all to the Summer Scholars team. I'm going to call us the Summer Scholars Dream Team because any question you have, we are here to answer it for you. So again, we have myself as part of the Office of Innovations and Strategic Partnerships, Bridget McComas, representing Department of Student Services, Angie McDonald, hailing from Early Childhood Department, and our fearless leader in this space, Liz Wolf, from Curriculum and Instruction. So again, we are your team if you have any questions or need any support regarding Summer Scholars.
All right. So I want to just extend gratitude and thanks to the 135 people, I believe, on this call who helped us build this program not only this year and will support it or supported it last year. So you all, through partners, families, educators, principals, teachers, made the pictures in this slide happen. So we had 8,000 CPS students participating in Summer Scholars and Jumpstart in 2021. As a result of the programming, a record number of students earned graduation credits through some flexible credit optioning in June. Our partners sparked excitement. We had bikes donated, helmets donated, students learning yoga and dance. And we had a number of students who really focused on social emotional learning skills. And so as you can see in the photos from left to right, all of our students have are brandishing smiles and participating in those activities that really kind of scream out summer.
And then we wanted to take a second just to highlight what's new for this Summer Scholars Program for this summer for 2022. And so one of the main ones is that we really wanted to build upon the extra time that we had for this year. So we wanted more time for our partners to plan with their ILT and their LSDMCs. We wanted our teachers to have more time to present, to participate in PD and to plan lessons. We wanted just more time in general. And so that's one of the things that we have this year. We have a structure, deadlines and timelines that really all departments here in CPS came together to create this, this beautiful, organized, this is what needs to happen so that this happens next in a timely manner. Like for example, and we'll get into it in the next slide, but our enrollment cutoff is directly related to enrichment and the budget for enrichment so that the Treasurer's Department has time to upload the money. And we know we're trying to schedule those things so that they make sense because we're trying to get those orders placed as quickly as possible for our partners and for our schools. Because as you all know, if you are shoppers via on Amazon or other formats, we know that there are very real shipping delays due to the pandemic. And so we are going to capitalize on this extra time that we have to just build upon them. We have early invitations sent out this year for Summer Scholars and for Jumpstart. So even though Jumpstart is in August, we wanted our parents to be thinking and planning for attendance now so that they can plan for that later on. And again, related to the more time, we wanted our enrichment partners booked early. We know there's a lot of other summer camps going on as well. And so we wanted CPS to be able to book with our partners early. We have additionally this year worked with our partners, Casey and Heather Calhoun from the Positive School Culture Department, have done a really nice job providing our partners with activities that are related to social and emotional learning that they can do in the afternoon as well. And then strategic academic intervention. So looking at our MAP scores, looking at our DIBELS data for reading, and inviting those students that need that additional time to show academic mastery, the opportunity to do so. Next slide, please. Oh, you're good, Brandy. Thank you. Yep, I'll jump right in for this one. Okay.
That's okay. I can take it, Liz. I think I've got the next one. So I'll go ahead and take the highlights of the 2022 Summer Scholars. As Liz had mentioned, we really are planning with time in mind and preparedness. And so some of the highlights that we captured from last year and are carrying forward is that all of our buildings will offer Summer Scholars programs. And we knew the importance of continuing learning and enrichment programs for pre-K through 12, and so we'll continue with that. We're breaking up the day so that academic and SEL support is a must-have in the morning with at least a 3-hour chunk of time. And then in addition to that, there's an enrichment option afterwards. SEL is social emotional learning. We love those acronyms as educators, and so I apologize for throwing them all out. The enrichment activities occurring in the afternoon are where schools will be working with our partnerships, so many of whom are on this call, to make certain that students could benefit the most, but that there was also flexibility. Our transportation department is working with buildings to make transportation available in the morning, at midday, and again in the afternoon for students. And again, those dates for programming are June 1st through the 28th. So let's take a look at the timeline. So as an LSDMC member, you're probably wondering, you're talking about more time, you're talking about preparedness. What should I be expecting right now? So schools are sending some form of communication, either from paper form or electronic Google form, or sometimes at schools are asking for telephone calls and communication through conferences, those multiple communications. But what you need to know is that communication is being given to parents this month in February with an enrollment date by March 11th. The reason for this is so that parents have time to plan for their students' summer programming, and the district has time to prepare to make programs great, to secure staffing, to secure transportation, to secure all of those things that make our Summer Scholars program amazing. We recognize that different families have different needs for transportation over the summer months. And so we have a deviated form that needs to be completed by March 18th. And that form is available at your student's school building. A couple of notes about the programming. Program runs through June 1st through June 28th, and the district is observing Juneteenth on June 16th. We want to see more bright smiles, so please, please, please make sure that you share those pictures on Twitter and Facebook. And that is our June Summer Scholars timeline. And I believe that Angie is going to talk to us a little bit about Jumpstart in August.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, everybody. So Jumpstart is our program that happens in August, just before school begins. It is open to all of our kindergarten and preschool students who are enrolled for the 22-23 school year. We do have a transportation option available for eligible students if they're registered in time. And I think the big thing that I really love about Jumpstart is that it really supports family and students transitioning into the school environment and just remembering what it's like to be in school or experiencing it for the first time if this is new to them. So we got a lot of positive feedback last summer from our families and our students and our teachers who participated. So we're really excited to be doing this again. We will have those academic activities and transition activities to support academic success, as well as really being explicit with some social emotional activities to support when students are feeling a little nervous being separated from their families for the first couple of days. Another piece that we do offer are some supports for families as we welcome them into the new school year, because there's always lots of paperwork and questions, and people will be on at the schools on staff to be able to answer questions to the best of our abilities. So just a little timeline about Jumpstart. As families are enrolling for next school year, we are asking them if they are interested in participating, and we are able to flag them for active participation at this point. If a family would like to have transportation and they are eligible to receive transportation, they will have to be registered by July 8th. Students can attend Jumpstart if they are enrolled in the district by July 29th. And Jumpstart will follow each individual school schedule, and it will be for 4 hours each day. So tentatively right now, it will be the week of August 8th through 12th. We're just waiting on the final approval of that district calendar for next school year.
All right. It looks like,
yep.
Sorry, it looks like there was a couple questions in the chat, but it looks like you got them all already, Liz. You answered those quickly, so thank you for that. And if you have anything to add, I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to say there were no, if anybody had other questions, to put them in, but it looks like other than that, they have been answered.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. And if you think of anything afterwards, please reach out. I'll put my email address in the chat as well for ease.
Liz, we do have one question about July enrollments with with offices being closed.
For Jumpstart, yes.
So I'll do my best here. Within, registration and enrollment happens throughout the year. So even though school buildings are closed, families can come to the main office or the hubs to enroll for preschool, and we will take those registrations and enrollments to get them started and set up for that first day back at Jumpstart.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, I'm going to introduce our board member, Eve Bolton, and she has a few updates, and we know that Dr. Moffitt is on, and she will take a few minutes as well. So Eve, are you ready?
I am ready, and I am so thrilled that there are so many people participating, and I'm particularly thrilled that we have one of our newest members of the school board joining us, who is also a veteran LSDMC chair from Withrow, and that, of course, is Dr. Moffitt. And I have to confess, I've been emailing her some of this stuff because, gosh, you all are getting a lot more information sometimes than we are, and I've been learning an awful lot. So thrilled to be here. I think my major update is to introduce our new board members, but also to give you a status, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, a status on our superintendent search. Is there anything else you need me to do?
Nope, that's what you're on deck for.
Okay, I try to do as I am directed. Appreciate it. We'll start with the school board members. As many of you know, there was obviously an election in November, and we have a very wonderful new board, very much acclimated towards change and very much acclimated towards community involvement and engagement, and very focused on our kids. The 4 people returning are Ben Lindy, myself, Carolyn Jones, and Mike Morosky. Of that group, Ben Lindy is the new president. Carolyn Jones, who was president the last few years, is vice president. Mr. Morosky remains a member and chair of policy, and I remain obviously a member and chair of finance. But our newest members, as I mentioned, and I know we want to hear from Dr. Moffitt, are Kareem Moffitt, again, an LSDMC chair veteran. We have an Olympic gold medalist and former teacher at Cincinnati Public, Mary Weinberg. And we have a second attorney of the 7, and that is our own CPS and UC extraordinaire, Brandon Craig. So that's the new board. And in our big effort, which is the single most important thing a board does, choosing a superintendent, we have also involved our 3 outgoing board members that we celebrated the last time we met. And that would be, of course, as you know, Ryan Messer, Melanie Bates, and also Pam Bowers. And they're helping us with this search. And I think I can do this pretty quickly. It's a 6-month search. We have one of the finest search firms helping us. We have voluminous information. We started the search with community input in defining a profile and the expectation of what the superintendent would be. And we ended, for the most part, the gathering information, again, with extensive panels and efforts. I can tell you, as a veteran member of the board of 14 years and a few superintendent searches where I used to teach, as well as here, I have to tell you, this is the most extensive search. And the search has not only gotten us from the very beginning around 50 or so folks that got limited down to 11, and then to 6, then to 3, has been a widespread national search. And we have still a few more meetings, or maybe only one more meeting or 2 more meetings, we're not sure, where we have our 3 finalists. And our 3 finalists are our very own interim superintendent, who has been our deputy superintendent, and that is Tiani Amat. We have also a very local candidate with a lot of experience in our area, and that is superintendent of Middletown's district, Middletown, Ohio district, and that's Marlon Stiles, who's a graduate of Mount Healthy High School, if I understand it correctly. And then the 3rd candidate is a woman by the name of Ironetta Wright, who is currently the deputy superintendent of Detroit and had previously been involved with Duval County, which is the Jacksonville, Florida area. So 3 great candidates down to the wire, and your board is doing the best that we can to make the best possible decision. We can't lose with any one of them. We can be proud of any of the 3 that ultimately make it. And we are reaching closer and closer, I think, to the final effort. And with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Moffitt, with any comments, not only about the search, but some of the stuff she's heard tonight. And also, it's very important to hear her platform that was a winning platform before the before the community. So, Dr. Moffitt, if you'd like to speak, and then, Amy will shut you and me down both because it's their meeting. But again, I'm just thrilled with the presentations, thrilled with the attendance, and I can't tell you on behalf of the board how much the LSDMCs really mean to us, not only in the past as something that we're proud of, but really, as you can see, part of the bright future of where we have some great degree of decentralization in school effort and governance. So, Dr. Moffitt, Kareem, if you'd like to speak up, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eve. I will not take a long time. I understand this is precious time. You all are volunteering, every last one of you on here. So I really want to be respectful of that. I just want to say hello. I wanted to attend because I have been a former LSDMC chair. I've worked with, and went through this principal search, and we got Mr. Gray at Withrow. I've also worked with Mr. Corey at North Avondale, and I've met many of the principals already on here. So Mary and I are going around to every single CPS school and trying hard not to be too intrusive, but learning about what's going on in the trenches with you all, because you all are there as far as admin, volunteers, you guys are doing it. So we want to hear exactly what you need so that we can try to make some connections from the board. As a chair, I know that you all are a super important part of, the LSDMC is a super important part of keeping the buildings running, keeping the community connected. And I just want to say thank you. It's not missed on me because I've been there before. So please know that when I say I appreciate you, I have been you, and I'm here to help make connections that you need as a former chair, and as just somebody on the board that you can connect with. So I put my email in there. It's probably all the way up at the top, but I'm on the board website. So please reach out if you do need anything. And I'm happy to come to a school, to an LSDMC meeting, and come and talk and just listen primarily. We come to events, so please let us know when you're having events. I know I will be at Chase, and so I'm super excited about that as well. But just hello, and thank you for all that you do, guys. I really appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Well, that's for us, Amy. So unless anybody has any questions, and if they do, as Kareem mentioned, you can reach us through the board for sure. And I know, Kareem, aren't you and Mary on a panel at Chase very soon, if I recall?
Yes, we
March?
are. Yes, we are. And we are, listen, every time I can engage with students, you have me there, even if it's just drive over. If I can engage with parents, I'm there. So and continue to invite us, because we've gone to a program at WANA. We're going to Chase. We've visited schools that were on remote and peeked in and seen lots of littles. But we really are dedicated, and it's not just a one-time thing. So we really want to go to schools consistently. So this is a one-time hitting everybody the first time, but continue to invite us, because we're really trying to engage.
I see the chair of Chase, our great and our own Tim and West has put that invite in there, and by all means, everybody join. Oh my goodness, we have a number of folks with the great Michael Benton, and of course Monica Battle is chiming in as well. So we're very fortunate. Great attendance by principals and by members of the LSDMCs and chairs. This is all part of the rebuilding that's been going on for over 2 years, almost 3 years now. And it's just great to see this happen, because we cannot get where we need to get until we get all of our LSDMCs fully acclimated to what they need to be doing in their schools. And we get at every single school a PTA or a PSA or a whatever in the world we're calling them. We need you greatly. We want to be have the most engagement of any urban district in this country, because it's at that level that we will excel. And that's at that level that we demonstrate that our folks love our kids just as much as anybody else in any other district. And they have a right to have a say about what goes on in our district. So thank you all. Long time.
All right. Thank you, Eve. And thank you, Kareem. We appreciate both of you being on here. Well, we are going to wrap up. Just a few quick reminders. You will have your annual evaluation will come out to your LSDMC chair and to the principal very shortly. That will be coming out in April and will be returned by June 1st. So we will get that out to you after spring break. Also, we are asking for you to complete, if you click the link, the form below, to just give us any feedback, topics that you would like to see in the next meeting, any pluses, deltas, anything that you'd like to see done differently. You can either click the QR code or click the Google link for that. And then just to close out, if you haven't already, put your name and the organization that you're associated with in the chat. And if anybody has any celebrations, now is the time to share. Other than that, I'm not holding anyone hostage. So we appreciate you. And if you have a celebration, we'd love to hear about it. Yep, I did see Dr. Wallace's students doing phlebotomy and giving blood, people giving blood. So that's a really awesome opportunity. If anybody is interested in heading over to Woodward, you can get some information from her. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Wallace.
Hey, Amy, if I could interrupt, this is Eve. I want to congratulate my fellow Aiken Falcon, Dr. Wallace, on that wonderful display on Facebook. Made me very proud of the Bulldogs at Woodward, and of course, my favorite Falcon, Belinda Wallace.
If anyone has anything else to share. 57 people at Silverton were vaccinated tonight. So there must have been a vaccination clinic there. So thank you for sharing that, Ms. Grody.
Amy, I want to also share one other thing, and I don't know the date, but Principal Wallace and I will be speaking at the 60th anniversary of the founding of Aiken High School. I'm talking about education, but she's the star. She's got the keynote address. So we want to make sure that I'm not sure. They keep saying it's at the Purple People Bridge or whatever, which would be
we're taking over the Purple Bridge.
So purple and white. We're proud of all of our schools, but what are you gonna do? You gotta love the one you graduated from the most.
Oh, Michael Owens says that SCPA. Oh, I lost it. SCPA is now a federal site, but let me go back. SCPA is now a federal work study site for Xavier University. They are recruiting math tutors. So
Fantastic.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And I think we have, let's see, I don't see anything else. I don't know if Taylor Porter left, but he's about to have the first esports gaming league in our district. So he's piloting that in the spring. So that's super exciting. The Gaming Gators. Oh, we had
I don't know if Principal Chambers is on here, but I'm super impressed by his 155-pound female wrestling champion. I don't remember her name. Erin, I want to say.
Oh yes.
Amazing.
Saw that.
Yes.
We saw Mayor Aftab was at College Hill today and shared the story of Mae Jemison with the students. So thank you for sharing that. Nicole DeGreg won the Florence Nightingale Award, the nurse at Roberts.
Extremely important among a very, very big competitive field for nursing, especially at this time. The great heroes in this country, the nurses.
The Speak Up, Speak Out students on Monday, their day off of school, President's Day, they did engage in a Black History conversation on Facebook Live.
Great.
We have a few teams continuing in tournament play. Go CPS. I'll mess this up. I believe Gamble, Walnut, Taft, Woodward. I might mess that up.
Riverview.
Withrow.
Go Tigers. Okay. Darren, I knew it.
I don't have anything for anybody, so just please complete the survey and enjoy 15 extra minutes with your family.
Perfect.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
I appreciate
Guys,
you.
thanks for all you do.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.